Welcome, everybody, to the Definitive UFO News Show. And as you know, there are mysterious drone swarms going on. It started in New Jersey. Now it seems to be spreading across the United States. It's happened over in the UK. You got a lot of people concerned right now, a lot of people trying to sort for answers. Me, myself, and we're going to go on a journey tonight. We're going to go ahead and we're going to, take what we know and try to put that on the board and see what it is that we can figure out or uncover about these, because as you know, there have been many officials who have been questioned about this, asked questions, and they don't have any answers. Literally, the literal answer is I don't know, we're not sure, we don't know who's controlling these things. We don't know. And it started out as fun and games. As you know, drones are, readily available. You can go right down to your local Walmart. You can go to your Best Buy and pick up a drone. But these are a little different. These aren't your normal take to the park quadcopter drones. These aren't even your hobbyist sort of drones. This is something a little different. And, thankfully, there hasn't been anything yet here, because I've my heart goes out to all of those that are having to go to sleep at night knowing that these things are flying overhead, because say they are just regular drones, they're huge and they could fall on a house, they could injure anyone, they could cause an accident. It's getting out of control at this point. And I looked around and I saw the frustration on a lot of the people out in New Jersey, our family, our citizens, our American citizens here, and someone has to do something to try to figure this out. I've watched some shows, and I don't think they go into full detail and kind of look into what this is. And I think the answer is likely right in front of our faces, because when you look around, there's a lot of different things that happen at different times. And I don't think, when things happen one by one, and they're sporadically done, you don't get a full picture. It's like it's almost the equivalent of compartmentalization, right? Where unless you have all the information in one place, then it's kind of hard to see the bigger picture. So we're going to be going into that here today. We're going to go over what's happened so far, and then let's take it down a line to try to figure out what's the likely cause of this, since we can't get answers anywhere else. And I'll be glad to be the guy to take you down that. Once again, I don't know if I introduced myself. My name is Mr. Rob G. This is the Definitive UFO News Show. This is a place where you will be able to come and get your UFO news as it comes and as it happens. So going forward, make sure that you come here, and anything that breaks within the UFO world, we will be covering that right here on this show. Along with the other shows that we have here on this channel, we have like 4 different shows, and we needed, the ufology needs more news sort of outlets. So that's what we did, and that's what we have here. So glad to have you here. If you are a return visitor, we definitely appreciate you coming in. Let me go ahead and also, at the end of this, towards the end, once we get through this, we will be opening up the phone lines. So the phone lines will be open, because I know there's a lot of concerned people out there, and I want you to be able to call in and talk about this. So let me go ahead and actually get that information up on the screen, because I think that is going to be important. Some people just need to vent, need to kind of talk about what's on their mind, how they're feeling. Would love for people from the area of New Jersey, or where these drones are actually now occurring. They're actually moved to the West Coast now. And I would love to have you guys call in and kind of talk about what's going on with you, how you're feeling, how you're getting through this. And let's go ahead and make sure we get this up here. Once again, the Definitive UFO News Show with Mr. Rob G. And this is the number, same as it's always been, but you can put it in your phones. It's 856-843-3444, or that's 856 the DIGG. If you are watching from outside the United States, dial 001 first, then the number 856 843 3444, or that's 856 the dig. Let me go ahead and say hi to everybody who's come on in here so far. We do have UFO Tim James is joining us. We have T-Bone, say Mr. Rob G is joining us as well. We have Maggie M10 out there. And let's see, what do we have here? Wes H. Wes H is here. We do have President Zaddy, Presidential Zaddy. And let's see. Okay, Zaddy may have some data for us to look at too. And we're going to get to that towards the end of the show. So we'll open it up. And yeah, I would love to have you guys do that as we go ahead and get into this. Magneticus Attractus as well. And yeah, so it's been concerning to say the least. The more I watch this, the more as time goes on, my perspective seems to shift on this. And I think I went over this on a previous one of the other shows that I've done on some of the links that happened for me. And I won't really go into that too much right now. But I will say when the first story hit, for the Langley incursion in 2023, we didn't have images. And in your mind, you're going to think of quadcopter drones, ones you can go get at the store, DJI Phantom, things of that nature. But it turns out it's a whole different thing. And it's really, really strange that the officials in government, I mean, we're talking mayors, governors, don't have any answers on this. The DOD mum's the word. They're just saying, hey, it's cool. We don't know what they are, but it is cool, but it's cool. So, yeah, we're not going to take that. We're not going to take that. We're going to go over some information that I think is going to be pretty dang good. So if you got the number, make sure we got that in there. Let's go ahead and continue on with the show tonight. Also, yes, we do have members on this channel. We have memberships as well. So, and Joanne, the Beekeeper, Dina and Lee, Maggie, M10 Depp from Sack Flat 6, Catherine Jones, Miss Catherine Jones, Cosmic Joe Chronicles, Wes Decker, T-Bone. Appreciate you guys on your support. And yes, Drone Watch Day, ? Because we're not sure exactly how long this has been going on. Technically, if you really want to go into it, this has been going on for years. It's just recently, since we've had an uproar with the citizens that have been directly affected by it, that I think it's come to the forefront of everyone's mind, which is a good thing because the awareness is really what we want. Regardless what this turns out to be, we want our citizens aware. We want people looking up at the skies because there are so many different dangers that could come from there. So as we get ready to get into this here, we have, and actually let me get my companion app here. We're going to start out with Picatinny Arsenal Base in New Jersey, USA. Began experiencing the incursions around November 18th, 2024, which is almost a month ago. Officials at the base have come out and stated these don't belong to them, right? So right off the bat, we were able to take that off the table. That was the initial thought process, was that these drones are coming from this base. This we're talking about before Thanksgiving is when this all started, this current wave all started. And we're going to go along the timeline. If you're from that area, I'm sure you know this timeline very well. But to kind of put it all in perspective and to put a bow on it, this is exactly what we're going to do here. So this is the map everybody's seen on television showing the affected areas. There's been pretty much the entire state, if you look at it, of New Jersey has been affected in some way by these drones. And you can see there the Picatinny Arsenal military base right there in Morris County, Trump National Golf Club, Bedminster, and then Trenton. Let's see, all the orange areas. I mean, all those counties: Bergen, Passaic, Sussex, Warren, Essex, Hunterdon, Somerset. You got even Staten Island, New York. We have reports in New York, Monmouth County, Ocean County, Burlington, Camden, and the list goes on. And let me see here. I need a follow guide here. All right. So this is where it started. Okay, they're seeing these drones, and it started off pretty slow. Everybody's like, "Oh, okay, it's drones. Somebody's out flying these drones." You would think a person would be attached to those drones on the other end, maybe in a park somewhere not too far. But they the drone incursions continued, and then residents began to notice, hey, wait a minute, these aren't your normal drones. These things have been reported by some of them as large as cars. Now think about that. Have you ever seen a drone as big as a car? Some said SUVs. That has to be one of the biggest drones imaginable, right? And pretty scary to see if something that big. Imagine your SUV lifted up off the ground and floating above your house. Just the thought alone, right? So, so with that being said, we also had right after this, or exactly about, I'd say a few days after this, we ended up having the RAF bases in the UK began experiencing incursions November 20th, 2024. And said they too don't know where they came from. So, literally on the other side of the world, a few days afterwards, so Picatinny was November 18th. The RAF bases began experiencing drone incursions 2 days later, opposite sides of the world. So we'll get into on what we think happened, but just think of the coordination effort there if these would be related. Other side of the world, Picatinny, New Jersey, RAF bases over in England or UK, and we have RAF Feltwell, RAF Lakenheath, and then RAF Mildenhall. Now, with those bases, we have potentially some nuclear assets there, is what has been rumored. These are American bases in the UK, and they've long been there. We rumored, like I stated, have nuclear assets there, and we have heard here in the UFO world that UFOs often are drawn towards nuclear installations, whether you want to call them not non-human or just foreign adversaries, right? They're going to be interested in where our nuclear assets are. So yeah, definitely a concern, right? So after all this started being reported, then we started getting the images coming in, right? And they were pretty obscure, and truthfully, still to this day, we don't have a great photo of any of these things that were occurring out there. So we don't have the best footage, and that just goes to show you that regardless if you are trying to film a UFO or a supposed drone, camera phones ain't it, right? Phones on your camera just don't bring through. So that goes to all you skeptics out there that say, hey, why do you guys keep taking blurry photos of UFOs? Well, we're taking blurry photos of drones as well. We're taking blurry photos of planes in the air as well, as you saw through this incident. So we could cut all the UFO, for some reason, the conspiracy behind why UFO photos are always blurry. So I wanted to make that point because I think it's a point that should be made. So one of the first the videos or pictures that we ended up getting in was the New Jersey drones, right? And let me go ahead and bring this up big screen here. So these New Jersey drones spotted all over the sky, milling about, going back and forth for a period of 24 or not 24 hours, but at least by the time the sun came up, these drones had seemed to disappear, and they would come back the very next day. So this isn't just a one-day event. We're talking about from Thanksgiving on every day. When you went to check the news, you saw images like this in the same areas flying over sensitive installations. Picatinny Arsenal Base is just that. It is apparently a base where they manufacture the ammunition for a lot of the armed services here in America. So that would be a concern, right? For a lot of officials and locals didn't know that fact. They know that there's arsenal that is manufactured there. So, yeah, I mean, automatically you're going to think bad actors, right? Especially when a week has gone by and you can't tie any of these drones to a person. When you can't tie these back to a person, then you have to start going down that road of, well, what, well, who's controlling these? Picatinny says no. We can't find any, particular person responsible for this. So let's go to our officials and ask them. And you would think you would get an answer like, okay, we'll check back with you. We're going to go and look for an answer. And what they come back with is, we don't know. Okay. And then so it feels in that moment that these residents are on their own to figure this out, which I think is really the troubling part of all this and the heart wrenching part, right? Because you can just imagine, I mean, a lot of us are drone free currently at the moment, although it is seeming to spread, but just that fear and uncertainty and unknown of having a family, you want to protect your children, you want to make sure your family's safe, and you go to the authorities who should have the answers, who should be able to give you some sort of consolation and support, and they don't have anything for you night after night after night. So we had this drone incursion here in New Jersey. This is some more footage here. Then it appeared that it was spreading because you have neighboring states. So Pennsylvania's right there. You got New York right there. Some people in New York stated that they had seen some of these things. There had been some images that they shown on TV, and it seemed to be regionalized as far as United States goes to just that area of the East Coast. But then we started seeing the leakage over over the state lines. So we did get some images in from Philadelphia, and I want to make sure this is full screen so you guys can see this here. You've seen these photos if you've watched the news. You've seen these drones that they show each and every night in Philadelphia. This is an example of one of these. Obviously, once again, you're not going to be able to see these very well. The pictures aren't the greatest. The videos aren't the greatest. But once again, so now you have the fear spreading out of New Jersey now into another state. So you have 3 different states being affected in fear of what who these drones belong to, and the government not having an answer. And so what ends up happening is an idle mind goes wild, right? Runs wild. So now the thought processes are going, okay, well, if my government doesn't know, what's up with that? Is it do they not want to tell me something, or do they know that it's potentially an adversary, and they're just afraid to let us know, and you have no answers, so all you can do is sit there all day and go through the milling about and thinking about what could the answer be, and it's gotta be so frustrating. I can imagine pulling my hair out trying to figure this out, or not getting the answers and getting really pissed off is lightly the way to put it. And I feel for them. I feel for them over there. I'm over here in California. We've had our own issues and we'll kind of get into some stuff there, but I feel for my people over there, right? Because you can feel that emotion through the camera. They're just so frustrated and they don't know what to do. So as time has gone on, because once again, it's rinse and repeat every day. What I'm hearing is the same. The drones are showing up in the same areas or the same parts of the sky, going on their same trajectories, and you're starting to get weird reports now. You had a report out in New Jersey where a family said that one of these drones, when it flew over them, they were in their car. When it flew overhead, it changed the time on the clock, or it affected the clock. And then as they moved away from the drone, the time corrected itself. Okay, that could be some part of electronic warfare, maybe, but it's also been reported with UAPs and UFOs. If you're familiar with that subject, then you know that that's one of the call signs there. And then just a lot of weird things, because now as we get further and further and further into it, questions are being asked as far as, okay, so you don't have any answers, but have you tried to follow these things? Like, do you know where these things are coming from? And do you know where they're going? Do you know, like, anything? Do you have any information to give? Not a single drop of anything was given to these citizens, and still hasn't, because it's still going on tonight. It went on last night, and it's still continuing. It just rained in New Jersey the other day. I think yesterday or the day before, rained there, and these things are still continuing to happen. Right? The authorities can't tell these people so what has ended up happening, right? So you're getting reports of time changes on the clock, things affecting electronics. You have citizens who are now feel like, you know what, I'm going to take these matters into my own hands. I checked out a few different YouTube channels where uh, citizens were hopping in their cars, literally going live on YouTube and attempting to follow these drones to their destination or wherever they, trying to solve the crime themselves, right? And that's what we do as human beings. And that's kind of what we're doing here right now on this show. As citizens, we're trying to solve the crime. We're bringing the news, but we're still trying to solve the crime and help our, brothers and sisters, our citizens, our family over there in New Jersey. Get some peace of mind. At least have a thought process to go off of, instead of having to sit in this uh, situation where there is no way out, and you're just going stir crazy, right? So this is just happening day after day after day after day. You watch the news every evening, it's the same song, different day. So what was surprising me about it is that we were getting weeks into these drone incursions where still no answers. You figure, okay, tomorrow they're going to have an answer. Okay, tomorrow is the day that they'll find someone. Okay, tomorrow is when they'll go ahead and identify who could be, at least could be, involved in what's going on. But they've come out and said, hey, it's not us as far as the U.S. goes, and we don't think it's an adversary. You guys don't have anything to worry about. You guys are safe. But they're like, okay, you don't know anything about who they belong to, but you're gonna say that we're safe. How can you say that, right? Because there definitely seems to be areas where authorities may know something, and they're simply holding back the information. So how does that then go further to help solve the and ease the minds of the people who are experiencing this? It's almost a slap in the face. It literally is a slap in the face, right? That doesn't help at all. There is no consolation. There is no easing of anxiety or stress there. It just raises it. But what you're going to learn today is that this isn't the first time that your government has taken a stance like this, and we're gonna connect some dots, and then and I'm gonna take you on that trip, because what I feel like is, if you are watching this from that area, there may not be a lot of you who have given the thought process to opening up as far as what else this could be. So what I'm asking for you tonight as we go down this path is to just have an open mind about everything that we're going to talk about, because obviously, being in the situation that we're in right now, no one has any answers. The government doesn't know. They don't know who they belong to. They're not giving any answers. Let's have open minds tonight as we go down this path and try to figure out what's going on. And I think you'll be at least in a better place than where you came in tonight. And that's all I wanted. This is my giving back to citizens out there. This is me helping from where I'm at. So as we continue on this, Philadelphia, and we're worrying now because we're seeing this go to other states. Now the problem with this is that being that you're going a week, 2 weeks in, then you have an opportunity for what they call copycats, right? Because everybody has a drone, right? Everyone has a drone. So literally in any city in America right now, someone can say, you know what? I want to be a part of this, and go out and put their drone up in the air. And then now there's a drone sighting in this other city, right? Because the fear is already there, the uncertainty is there, and now in the minds of everyone who sees a drone, it's like, oh my gosh, is this one of these drones, right? So now we have to take stories that come after this with the grain of salt, because there are just people out there that just this don't have anything better to do but to try to capitalize or take advantage on the situation at hand. And we might, I'm sure, are going to see some of that as we go along. And that's kind of how I felt with the next part of this, because, well, before I get to the next part, I will say there were some, along with citizens in New Jersey going out and literally trying to chase these drones or follow them to their destinations. You had people putting drones up in the sky. Peculiar things were happening. We're getting reports from people in New Jersey who were saying that whenever we got close enough to one of these things, these drones, they would go dark. They would shut all their lights off, or they would move away, right? That's a sense of awareness there, right? So I know they have those goggles that you can wear when you fly drones, and it's kind of immersive, and so you can see through the drone's eyes. So I know they do have those things. So it's possible, right? But that's just one thing to think about, one thing to keep on your mind, right? Okay, so as this continued, I'm getting frustrated as well by the day, which is why we're doing what we're doing today. And then they come up with the drone. Well, this one right here, this is more concerning, right? I mean, one that made me feel like, okay, man-made, because this one looked like it had fixed wings on it. Okay. Now, another thing about this, I don't want people to get confused, is don't automatically think, okay, it has flashing lights, so it's abiding by FAA guidelines or regulations. Let's stop right there with that, because just because something has blinking lights on it doesn't mean anything. I could get a flashlight and blink in the FAA pattern. Does that mean I'm a plane, or does that mean I'm compliant with FAA? So let's stop because it has lights, it's just it's something regular, because obviously if it's blinking the FAA pattern, but the FAA doesn't know what it is, it doesn't have a tracker or any sort of identifier, then what are we saying here? So I definitely want to make that point real quick here before we move in to the drone sighting that I saw pop up right here in California. Now, yeah, I mean, that looks a little weird, right? I'm not so familiar with drones to say that this isn't a standard design for some type of drone. Like, there isn't one that has flown before that looks like this. It does look sort of strange. One thing, though, is that it's happening in the daytime with the New Jersey drones. For whatever reason, we haven't really seen them in the daytime. We usually see them at dusk. Okay. So when I saw the California drone, I was like, is this a copycat? Kind of felt like it might be a copycat. So but it's still there. It's still part of the story. It's still part of the timeline, right? So we're just going to leave it as part of the timeline. Now, where things started getting, escalating, where things started escalating was when the mayor of New Jersey was going on all these programs and expressing his frustration. Like he could no longer stay professional, and he was like, "What the hell is going on?" You know what I mean? I'm going to talk to the governor. I'm going to do, talk to the Department of Justice. I'm doing all these things, and no one has any answers for me. I'm who the citizens come to for answers. So I expect, the people I lean on to have answers for me, so I can give these to the citizens. No answers. No answers. So this happened. You guys saw it all as the timeline played out. This eventually led to what we aired here on our channel the other day. We aired the Homeland Security Committee hearing, where the FBI went ahead and testified and kind of said some mind-blowing things, right? And notice how that hearing came so fast. Oh, it was overnight. It didn't take any time. It took a few people, it took a community to be frightened and not have answers, but immediately the response, which is how it's supposed to be and how it should be when we're talking about other things that potentially could be threats. The response time should be that fast. And I kind of applaud them for that. But you'd be surprised at some of the things that they said. We have a little bit of video here that I do want to play here, and hopefully we don't get flagged for it. We're just trying to bring the news, trying to make this transformative. So we're going to go ahead and play a couple of pieces of what happened here at this hearing. Let's start here.
His time has expired. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you, Chairman. And, sometimes I feel like I'm in the twilight zone up here. Like month after month, people come before us, they testify, and you don't get a lot of answers. And it's concerning. It's frustrating. You're telling me we don't know what the hell these drones are in New Jersey are? Is that correct?
That's right.
It's crazy. I mean, that's crazy. That's madness that we don't know what these drones are. You're telling me that a lot of these, Mr. Jones, you're telling me that 90%, 95% of these drones along the U.S.-Mexico border, we can't interact because they're not in U.S. territory?
That is correct. A large proportion of them stay in foreign airspace.
I'll tell you what, there are a lot of Americans that are very frustrated right now that are essentially questioning where are my taxpayer dollars going? This Doge craze that's kind of starting to take hold, this is very real. I mean, this is going to come. People are going to have to come before the carpet, and they're going to have to explain every single line item. What do you do here? What does this get? And so, the chairman's putting this together because we want to know these topics. So the American people deserve to know the truth on this, and we also deserve to have actions on it. And if it's a budget issue, no problem. But it's also what is our money getting us? Clearly, not a whole lot. And something needs to change, though. I'm trying to figure out what that something is. It just, month after month, it's the same old, same old. The technology's already out there. Drones, this isn't new. Drones are 100 years old. This isn't state of the art. Drones are old technology. The fact that we don't know what's flying in our airspace is only the tip of the iceberg, what's to come. We have to fix this. And I want to partner up to fix this. Part of that is finding out the proper resources you need, training, authorities. I get the authorities piece, but it's a cradle to grave type of situation. It cannot just be, the answer can't be we don't know. And the answer can't be zero. I mean, we got to do better than that. And if we don't, I suspect not good things will happen. So thank you, gentlemen, for coming before us and testifying. I look forward to partnering with all your agencies. I yield back.
Yeah. So after watching that, he literally sat up there and was like, yeah, well, I don't know. We don't know. Now, the likelihood of that is probably slim to none. So they know something. Now, once again, this is an example of a time where your government is just doesn't care how you feel about it. They're just not going to tell you. They don't care if you're frustrated. They don't care if you're upset. Now, why? That's what we're going to get into. We're going to get into the why here in just a moment. But, you know, there are, without tipping the hand, there are some things that they may be aware of that they just don't want you to know, or would prefer that you didn't know. So when that happens, right, just the natural person is going to go into, again, fear mode. And if you're already there, it's just going to amp you up or amplify you more. Because if they could sit there in a hearing and literally they didn't say, "Oh, I'll talk to you in a skiff." You're just like, "Nah, we don't know." No. So to the average person watching, they're like, "Okay, there is no answer to this. We just keep doing this. We just, keep doing exactly what we're doing right now every single night for eternity, or who knows how long, until whoever is controlling these decides to stop." There is no plan. There is no, we don't know right now, but we're going to try and figure it out. And, we should maybe have an answer for you shortly, or none of that. Just no. So that, for me, is when I started looking more into it, like, hey, why is it a short no? And this is, I started coming up with some stuff. Now, there was another person, congressman from New Jersey, who actually spoke, and he said some things that I think switches this into next gear. It at least gives you something to look at, because as far as we knew, I don't know how, the local people felt, or the information they had as far as like where these were coming from. But for us out here in the West Coast, we see the videos, so we just know that they arrived at some point, and they keep arriving. We don't know what direction they're coming in from. We don't have any of that data. However, the congressman here in New Jersey tipped his hand and kind of gave us some information that I thought was mind-blowing. I see a lot of clips being played about this, and not a lot of people are focusing on some of his comments, which I think are key. So we're going to go ahead and see what he had to say during this hearing. Hold your seats. Here we go.
Has my colleagues, Valiatakis and others in New Jersey and New York, about these drone sightings. So last night I was on the beach in Island State Park in Ocean County with the sheriff. He has been working it every single night. He's got his own tethered drones chronicling. One of his officers 2 nights ago saw 50 drones come in off the ocean right there. So we thought maybe they'll replicate it. They didn't, but we thought it was a possibility. Last night, we had a number of other people there, including a commanding officer from the Coast Guard, who said that one of their 47-foot motor lifeboats was followed by between 12 and 30 of these drones as they went through the water, followed right behind them. And I said, what's the rules of engagement? I mean, you do it if you're fighting against a narco trafficker or something. And they said, we don't know. We don't have any. So I did reach out to the commanding officer at the Joint Base, which is also in my district, and talked to him. Had a very good conversation. Colonel Anthony Smith, Joint Base Fort Dix McGuire, the 87th Air Wing, Air Base Wing today. And I said, I know you have the capability. You've put out press releases to identify and bring down drones. Why can't you deploy them at least to the ocean? Bring one of these down, find out who's doing it. They have the capability. He said, we don't have the authority, only within the parameters of our base. Well, there's a national interest here. Our jets fly over the ocean all the time for training, so that perimeter is larger. So I did write Secretary Lloyd Austin asking that capability that may be sitting in a closet somewhere. I know they use it all the time, but bring it out. And I'm not saying you got to share it with the sheriffs. It'd be nice. Just do it yourself. the interest of the American public. So I would ask if you would echo that request. I mean, DOD's got the capability, and maybe Homeland Security does as well. When we had a Zoom meeting with Secretary Mayorkas, our governor put it together, and I appreciated that. But I asked them, why can't we just track where they go to? Seemingly they're going out to sea, to something, a ship. We don't know for sure, but they come in off from the ocean. So the question really is, can't we just get DOD to share? In my first term, DOD and VA did a great thing, the DOD-VA sharing agreement for healthcare capabilities. It was fantastic. Why can't the DOD share this with Homeland Security, with FBI and others, so that you can go out and find out who they are? Maybe it's China. I chair the China Commission, and I've had 115 hearings on it. I'm barred from going there now. China is, and I'm on their hit list. Xi Jinping is a monster. Look what Putin's doing. They're all capable of doing horrible things to our people, and now they're threatening my good friend and colleague from New York, and of course New Jersey, big time. So let's go get that DOD capability and find out and put to rest the question, who is it? We can bring one down tomorrow. Your thoughts?
Sir, I'd just say I share your concern. I share a lot of frustration, and I'm more than willing to continue working with the Department of Defense to try to get better.
Again, if they don't have the authority, they can do it on an emergency basis. Just send that capability out to the ocean or to the beach, because they're coming in every day. Figure out which one it is and bring them down. And then retrieve it and find out what's going on. And as my good friend Congresswoman Malliotakis said, the thing with the balloon was mind-boggling. Over our bases, and we didn't see that was a threat. Well, this, I think, is a very serious threat. And so please, if you could, get DOD to share that capability. Maybe Homeland has it. I don't know. Maybe you have it somewhere. But I know DOD has it. Thank you.
Yeah. So once again, the FBI, the director, he's a director of something. I wrote it down here. But once again, I mean, he said he shares the frustration. Does this seem like a man that's bothered by what's going on? I don't get that. Body language doesn't say that. Now, like I said, this congressman did point out that these drones were coming from the ocean. Now, I had no clue of this. I had no clue that they're originating from the ocean. So now it opens up a new thought process. Now, you're going to immediately think, okay, adversarial. I'm going to show you why I don't, the likelihood of it being adversarial. We're going to walk down that path, and we're going to come to a point to where I think you might at least get an idea of what might be going on or who might be behind this here. So coming off the ocean, 50 of them, said the sheriff saw 50 drones coming off the ocean, right? So you immediately, as an average person, you immediately think, okay, there's a ship offshore that is sending these drones in, adversarial ship, and China, Russia. I didn't even think of Iran. Iran got thrown in, and we'll take a look at that because a congressman or someone in the Senate at Capitol Hill came out and said, no, I know exactly what's going on. There's a Iranian ship right off the coast, and it docked there about a month ago, and it's been sending these drones over. That's exactly what's happening. Well, we kind of got that one debunked. So this is where the twist started happening. We found out they're coming off the water. So now this is at least more data for us to think about and process. And then the Senate member went ahead and blamed Iran for it. And that's the other thing that you'll see. You'll see that we got a good feeling that they can't just not know anything. However, thinking adversarially, you notice they're not blaming any adversary. Just keep that in mind. However, the Senate member just ended up coming out and just blurting out Iran. And this was the White House press secretary coming out saying something about that.
Sabrina, can you tell me what the Pentagon is doing to address this issue of drone sightings over New Jersey? It's near sensitive. installations? The FBI is involved. What is the Pentagon doing?
Sure. So at this time, so aware of those drone sightings that have been reported, at this time, we have no evidence that these activities are coming from a foreign entity or the work of an adversary. We're going to continue to monitor what is happening, but, you know, at no point were our installations threatened when this activity was occurring. These are not U.S. military drones. Again, this is being investigated by local law enforcement. What our initial assessment here is that these are not drones or activities coming from a foreign entity or adversary.
Representative Jeff Van Drew, who is a Republican from New Jersey, was just on the air saying that Iran launched a mothership probably about a month ago that contains these drones, and that mothership is off the coast of the east coast of the United States. Is there any truth to that?
There is not any truth to that. There is no Iranian ship off the coast of the United States, and there's no so-called mothership launching drones towards the United States.
Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Pieces of the puzzle are falling in place, whether you see it or not. When you put it all together, you can see the timeline. Now you can see the pieces are starting to fall into place. Not adversarial, coming from the Pentagon. Not adversarial. Not U.S. military. Okay, that leaves private citizens and hobbyists and things of that nature. But we're going to still look at all three, because there's also another thing they left out as well, which is we know we've been dealing with UFOs with dealing with the Congress, talking to the Congress. They've been behind a push to kind of identify these anomalous things that are out there. So we do notice that they crossed that in this, what you just saw, crossed off the list adversaries, crossed off the list U.S. military. So now let's continue to go down this path, because essentially people around the world are looking for answers. Their governments don't have any, right? As we go ahead and get into the next stage. So that's what's happened so far. That's the timeline of the drone incursion, how it's been dealt with up until this point. Now, new news will be added tomorrow. I'm sure we'll have more to talk about and more to report on that. But now, here's where we start trying to figure out, with that information that we have, those clues. Now let's start to figure out what could be going on. And I'm going to take you down a path, which I know most of you will know some of this stuff that I'm about to go over. But in this situation, there are people that have never looked at UFOs as an option. They don't know anything about the subject. They're probably not even considering anything outside of something prosaic, like it has to be an adversary, or it has to be U.S. Black Project, something that they're testing, or these are the theories that I'm hearing a lot of those people kick out. So we're going to go down a path for their sake and for them as well. And once again, coming into this part of the conversation is where I would need you to have that open mind and just kind of listen and see how things lined up. See how this is being handled, how you feel in this moment, how the government has gone about giving non-answers. And I'm going to take you down the path, and I want you to see if you see similarities and can kind of understand where it is that we're going. After this, we'll open up the phone lines and let you guys come in and say some things. But this is how we're going to get this started. So as far as we've been battling with the government, it's been a tug of war. For those who may not know anything about UFOs or have not got into the subject, there's been a tug of war between the military, the government, and the citizens in regards to weird things in the sky that we've been reporting since the early 1900s. So literally close to 100 years of a back and forth battle on validating the things that we are seeing in the skies well before drones. And so we're going to start it off like this. Some cases where citizens saw anomalous things in the sky, went to their government for answers, very much like what's happening today with the New Jersey drones. So here we go. Battle of Los Angeles, February 25th, 1942. This was right at the beginning of World War II. Right after, this is when the Japanese, we thought, were attacking the United States on the West Coast. That's kind of what alarm bells went off. There were craft, is what they stated, which came from the sea, came on shore on the California in the sky. This is what you're seeing in this image here depicted. And this is one of the early incidents where we reported something strange in the sky, something that came off the water and came, kind of incurred onto the mainland of the United States. So this is one time that this happened. It's in the paper, clear as day. The object you see there where all the lights are shining is this anomalous thing way back in 1942, right? So we, obviously this is early in the UFO age. So we kind of, there's not a big uproar behind it, but it is a story. Obviously, searchlights and anti-aircraft guns combed the skies during the alarm. We shot thousands of rounds at this thing and couldn't bring it down. We shot thousands of rounds and could not bring it down. Did not affect it at all. Okay, this is one of the more famous things you guys might know, Roswell. So our government admitted that they had captured a crashed disc, a flying saucer, July 8th, 1947. The Roswell Army Airfield reporting retrieving a crashed disc. So this is the government stepping out, not really in a cover-up mode, or they hadn't begun that yet. This is what I always call the beginning of the government cover-up. This is kind of where the pulling back and forth started between the citizens and the government when it comes to anomalous things in the air. This incident right here. Because what they did after reporting flying saucer the very next day, they rolled it back, and they came in and said that this was a crash weather balloon, which we know in the 90s they ended up saying that was a lie, that it was actually something else. So the next thing that we had, incursion, and I'm not going over everyone, I'm just going over kind of ones that were anomalous, were in the air, and we were concerned about, we asked the government about. Next one would be the UFOs over Washington, D.C., July 19, 1952. Unknown craft fly over the Capitol in Washington, D.C. for a period of a few days. In D.C., anomalous things, craft flew over the Capitol, the White House, down in Washington, D.C. in the 50s, well before drones, well before you could blame it on something like that, right? Okay. Project Blue Book, Project Grudge. The reason why I have this in here is because this is where the early UFO sightings, or we're only calling them UFOs for this conversation, the anomalous craft were being cataloged in a report or in a program, which is Project Grudge and Project Blue Book, which ended with the Condon Report, which is measurable to what we have today with the group called ARROW, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Center, that basically catalogs all these anomalous sightings and information. But in this case, the Condon Report that came back said, nah, you know what? There's nothing to see here. We've investigated. There are no these anomalous things. They're not tied to anything that we need to worry about. So they kind of let it go at that point. And the reason why I bring that up is because it's, compare it to what you're seeing today, and it's like mirror image. We're just kind of replaying it all over again. So the next anomalous thing that was worth noting happened recently, more recently, the Nimitz Tic Tac. There were other things that happened before, but we're going to kind of hop just to the ones that that were brought to the forefront. So the Nimitz Tic Tac, yeah, David Fravor, a pilot who was diverted during the training mission to intercept an object that they saw on radar. We interviewed Kevin Day before, and these objects have been coming down for weeks. He'd been seeing them drop from the atmosphere down to sea level for weeks. Captain David Fravor was diverted to one of these objects, which he saw with his own eyes, interface with this thing that seemed intelligent, and it kind of just zipped away. Okay. So an example of another anomalous thing that has been in the sky that the government has been aware of and has no answers for, similar to kind of what's going on today. Then you have the USS Russell, 2019. So not very long ago at all. 5 years ago. 5 years ago, where they had a UFO drone swarm for weeks that was swarming the USS Russell. Okay, very similar situation, except it wasn't over land. It was at sea at night. These drones were hovering in numbers and kind of just watching the ship for whatever reason, right? Okay, this is just another example of a time where we had unexplainable things they couldn't explain in the sky. This has been going on for a very long time. So this incident, and then Captain Fravor, because he came forward and kind of had done some shows, and so it was brought out that when Lou Elizondo came out in 2017, that wait a minute, the United States has a program, a UFO program, current day, where they are investigating what they're calling UFOs or anomalous craft that are in the sky. Things that people never, were led to believe weren't true, were science fiction because of the whole stigma thing that the government used to put out, right? But they're actually actively investigating. So once that information came out, once these anomalous, more current, recent anomalous situations transpired, so now we want to get the Congress involved, right? And which we did, which is kind of what's leading us up to where we're at today, because we ended up, this is just more of the drone here. We ended up having the Congress the Senate put a vote on, the government being more open about the data that they retrieve about anomalous craft in the sky. Now, one thing I wanted to point out was Newfork. This will kind of put into perspective for you. Newfork, which is the National UFO Reporting Center. This is where it's sort of like MUFON, which is Mutual UFO Network, where if you have a sighting of something anomalous in the air, just like the drone swarms today, I would encourage you to report those drones to Newfork or MUFON, because if it's unexplained, it's anomalous, then this is where you go to report it. So Newfork, as of between 2001 and 2020, reported sightings of anomalous craft from individuals here within the United States. You wouldn't even believe. I mean, and the visual is just going to blow your mind. Look at that. Each dot that you see on this map is representative of an incident where someone saw something anomalous in the skies here in the United States. So when you think about what's going on currently, if this is unexplained, if this never gets an answer to it, you are another dot on this map. You add yourself to this map. And look at in the New Jersey area. I can't point to it, you can't see, but it is almost blackened out there, obviously because of the population density, and you can kind of see that across the map. But this just lets you know within a 19-year period how many times someone in this country has seen something anomalous that couldn't be explained and reported it to Newfork. So saying this to say, that what we're experiencing could be another thing once again to add to this list, because technically it is unexplained at this point and it is anomalous. But then we moved into the Senate Intelligence Committee. This is where June 24, 2020, the Senate Intelligence Committee votes for the DOD and intelligence community to publicly track and analyze UAP. So this is kind of where, instead of just screaming to avoid into the darkness, where it's like, okay, citizens are seeing weird things in the sky that don't make sense. Prior to June 24, 2020, no one would listen. No one within the government would listen. So this actually was a moment where now the government has to do something about these reports that are coming in from citizens about weird things going on in the sky. Sort of like what we're dealing with in New Jersey, right? But this is just further down the line. So this is where it all started. And then, just to kind of paraphrase, we had some things, some offices that were put together for collecting data officially in the public sphere, where the public could engage and be involved. And so one of those efforts was Government UAP Programs, August 4th, 2020. The DOD created the UAP TF, or Task Force. A year later, that changed over to November 23rd, 2021, creates the AIMSOG AOI MSG. And then the current iteration came into form July 20th, 2022, and they call that ARROW. So these are entities now within the government that kind of have to answer to the people about what these things are in the sky. Like, we're reporting these things, we don't know what they are, and we want to know, we want you to investigate and you tell us what they are. So there were some reports that had come out. We're not going to go over the reports really, but I do want to point something out in one of the reports, because I think this kind of ties to them not having an answer today, right? All this going on, you would figure that this isn't new to them based on the historical past between the citizens and the government, seeing things that couldn't be explained in the sky. So what happens? What happens? This is a report, and the reason why I want to bring this up here, this was a report that was, so these were supposed to come out every, I think, 180 days. It was, I can't remember, it was a few reports that were supposed, they had deadlines, and the report was mandated to come out by a specific date. This particular report, July, was due October 31st, 2022, but it did not come that day. We all sat around waiting for this particular report. Didn't show up. It didn't show up until 2.5 months later, on January 13th, 2023. So this report in particular, and this is where it gets kind of interesting, right? Prior to this report, the government would not tell the citizens, or would not admit, they redacted, and they redact a lot of stuff, but they had redacted specifically from what they had gathered about these weird things in the sky. They would not tell us what the shapes were. For whatever reason, the shapes of the objects they observed was redacted. My theory behind that was that because if they showed the shapes, if they didn't redact the shapes, then we would immediately be able to look at those shapes and line those up with the things we had been seeing, kind of matching, playing, what do you call that? The game where you match things. I don't know what it's called, but then we'd be able to kind of say, okay, you're seeing these, I saw that, right? And then kind of connect the dots. So this was a way for them to kind of keep us from validating the things we were seeing. But this is what they did. The first report where they said, okay, we're going to talk about some of the shapes. This is also the first report where they put this in here, which is 26 characterized as unmanned aircraft systems, UAS, And then the second line there, which is even more interesting, 163 characterized as balloon or balloon-like entities. This came out January 13th, January 13th, 2023. The first time they ever in any of the reports mentioned balloon or balloon-like entities, right? What happens 3 weeks later? February 1st, 2023, 3 weeks after this delayed report, they delayed the report, and then literally 3 weeks later, what do we get? I'm sure you guys know in the ufology. For everyone else, we got the Chinese spy balloon. So this was the government fighting back against the people, saying, you guys have been reporting things in the sky. Well, guess what? We looked into it, and we discovered that there are these spy balloons, adversary spy balloons, which is even more important, the adversarial angle on the things that we're seeing in the sky. This is where they tried to put that narrative there and say, hey, yeah, you guys have been seeing these white spheres, these white circles in the sky. And guess what? We looked into it and we found these balloons that must belong to another country flying across our country. They did 3 weeks after the delayed report, which was very peculiar. First time they mentioned balloon-like entities, and then magically 3 weeks later, they discover a balloon that belongs to China floating across the country. Okay. So this is now the pity pat game that is going back and forth. They're trying to say no UFOs, they're these. And then what did they do? If you remember, everybody saw this. This was the track that this balloon took across the United States. They allowed it to go through Canada, come through Alaska, go through Canada, come into the United States again, traverse the entire country as it was covered on the news every single day until it led up to the crescendo where they went ahead and knocked it down. They engaged. The world was watching as it happened. They sent in an F-22 to meet the Chinese spy balloon, and then boom, they blew it up right there live on TV. Blew it up. The shoot down was shown to so many people at one time. So people have been seeing anomalous things in the sky. Some of them have been reported as round spheres, white spheres. They put in the report, we've been seeing these balloon-like entities. Magically, 3 weeks later, they have a full production of a balloon floating across the United States that they get to blow up on camera. Beautiful, beautiful. Exactly what they wanted, right? So this is for them. This was saying, okay, we solved it. We're being spied on by China. By China. They've been sending these balloons over. This is what you guys been seeing, and now we need to recalibrate our sensors because we haven't really been paying attention or known that those things were up there, and they could be collecting data. They could be a threat. They could be, over us to drop something on us. Any of these things could happen. But the funny part about that was that the part that you're going to find hilarious in this, and let me actually bring this up for myself. The part that is so hilarious about that, you're gonna laugh. Well, maybe not. This is the funniest part about that balloon debacle. The Fugo Japanese bomb balloons were launched against America's mainland successfully between 1944 and 1945 during World War II. Adversarial balloons have been used and known about for 79 years before the Chinese spy balloon. So point being is that they've always known the balloons were up there. There was never a secret that they were up there. So if there was never a secret that they were up there, then why would they put it on display that way? Why would they put it in a report that way and say, hey, we've been seeing balloon-like entities, and then put on this production where they take down an adversary balloon in front of the world, when they know that balloons have been used in warfare and spying for 80 years. They also used balloons back in World War II with listening devices on them, with microphones. They know balloon warfare. So for them to act like they didn't know and to kind of position it like, hey, we're just finding this out. Very similar to what they're doing right now. Very similar to what's happening right now. And not only did they shoot the one balloon down, but they also had 3 other objects that they shot down over the Yukon, which we never got to see what those were. So as far as we know, they could have been some of the things that we're seeing today, some of the things that are flying over New Jersey right now. This was just a year, a little over a year, well, yeah, almost 2 years ago. So the other things that were unidentified that they never showed, they did this whole production with the balloon. They didn't show anything about the other things that they shot down literally within days of that incident, which everybody found strange and which you should find strange because it didn't make any sense. Why show one and then not the other? So for them, okay, like I said, it's a back and forth thing. They have the upper hand, then we do something to kind of counter that. So in this moment, they did this big thing. So now they feel like, okay, we've kind of diverted the focus away from the real weird things they're seeing in the sky and kind of tried to pose it as a balloon, right? So they go ahead, and a few weeks later, actually it's February 3rd. So on March 31st, 2023, they have a hearing with Arrow, with the director, Sean Kirkpatrick, and NASA, where they pretty much go over the report that showed the balloon entities in it. They kind of go over that report and kind of conclude in this presentation that there's nothing that they've seen to indicate alien aircraft. So this was them kind of doubling up on the report, and then the balloon shoot down, the adversary balloon shoot down. So it kind of mirrors what we are seeing today. So they thought the balloon event and their disingenuous presentation would redirect the focus and attempt to point the finger at our adversaries. But they didn't expect this because, let's see, March. So a couple months later, we had a whistleblower come out from the government to say, actually, I used to work in the government and there is actually anomalous craft out there. And oh, by the way, the government has those craft. They've retrieved some of those anomalous craft, and we have them. And we even potentially have biologics that went along with that. The News Nation interview that shocked the world. Everybody remembers this. And literally a month after this, David Grush was in Congress. So we got to have our whistleblowers in front of Congress to put this officially on record that the government does have ties with anomalous craft. They do have them in their possession, even though they've been saying that they didn't, or they didn't know what these things were the whole time. Very similar to what they're saying currently now in New Jersey. We don't know what they are, but I'm going to show you that they actually probably did know exactly what they are, because even with this, we had one more hearing. We had some things happen after this. This was like a real highlight for 2023. And then we had most recently, just a couple months ago, Lou Elizondo, Tim Gallaudet, Michael Schellenberger, and I don't know why Mike Gold was there, but he was testifying Congress again. So back to back, where we're having momentum in getting the government to uncover what they know about these weird things in the sky. Okay. Backs against the wall at this point, literally 1 week after this hearing, less than 1 week later, the drone issues begin. So Picatinny happens on the 18th. This was on the 13th. So 5 days after our latest hearing to attempt to put this stuff on record and get the government to come clean with what it knows about these anomalous craft in the sky, then now we have the drone incursion. So you can look at the drone incursion as potentially a result of what happened at the last hearing and just the momentum of the citizens being able to kind of get the government to admit what it knows about anomalous craft, or we could take it down another path, because this is what was in some of the reports. So they reported that out of some the anomalous craft they saw, 65% were lights, 4% were cylinders, 1% was a disc, 3% triangles, 1% square polygon, 22% orb round sphere. And that's kind of what they were going off of, the orb round sphere, because there are some of those anomalous objects that look like white balls. That if you saw these Chinese spy balloons were at like 50,000 feet, they look like little white balls up there. So you could potentially say, hey, it wasn't this, it was this, right? And that's kind of what the play was. But moving on, this was another piece here because it talks about UAS, which is what you're hearing a lot right now in the moment about these things that are flying over New Jersey and Philadelphia, New York, lately Oregon and Minnesota and other places. Now they're flying, they're calling them UAS. So with the UAS, reports from UAS observations reported near U.S. nuclear infrastructure, weapons, and launch sites, because historically these things have been, the anomalous craft have been reported for whatever reason having interest in nuclear sites. But we're not talking about things that look like physical craft. In some cases, we're talking about plasma balls. We're talking about very weird different things, right? Just a lot of different anomalous things. So in this report, I'm going to read you what it says here. Arrow received a total of 18 reports from the Administrator of Nuclear Security and the Chairman of Nuclear Regulatory Commission regarding incidents near U.S. nuclear infrastructure, weapons, and launch sites. The Administrator for Nuclear Security and Chairman of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission categorized all of these incidents as UAS, which is what they're calling the things that are flying over us right now. The drones, are calling them UAS. So in this report, this part was pretty interesting, though. I'm going to read each bullet point here. 10 of the reported UAS flew over protected areas for a duration less than 5 minutes. 2 instances involved longer flight times of 53 minutes and 1 hour and 57 minutes, respectively. Flight duration is known for the remaining 6 cases. Bullet point 2 says 16 cases involved only 1 UAS, while the remaining 2 cases each reported 2 UAS involved in the incident. In one instance, the UAS entered and departed the protected area twice. Sound familiar? Sound like what's going on right now, right? It does. But here's where it gets special, and this is why you can definitely call them out for lying when they say they don't know what's going on here. Because on-site security observed UAS in at least half of the UAS cases. On August 3rd, 2023, the D.C. Cook Nuclear Power Plant security recovered a crashed UAS that was given to Berrien County, Michigan, local law enforcement. Arrow, which is the current reporting agency for the government for UFOs or anomalous craft, UAP is what they call them. Arrow has no further information about the crash. During October 10th, let me stop right there. Why don't they? If Berrien County, Michigan, local law enforcement received the recovered crash UAS, wouldn't you want to go take a look at that? wouldn't that be something that you could go look at to to give an answer to the citizens? If they're the same UAS, they're exhibiting the same behaviors of flying over protected areas. If you have one that had crashed in your possession and you have access to it, you know it's there, it's in the report right here. And I would recommend that anyone out there that has the ability to go further and go to Berrien County, Michigan local law enforcement and inquire about this crash UAS. Because if I'm the FBI or whoever is standing in front of the citizens, this is what I'd probably go do to try to get an answer. But whatever reason, they haven't done that. Are they not aware that this is in this report? Because literally that's a clue, or at least a specimen, something they could look at and maybe even show to the public. Because why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they want to show this crashed object to the public, right? They're saying, oh man, we don't know what these things are. We just can't figure them out. We haven't been able to do any of this or that. You have the ability to go to Berrien County, Michigan local law enforcement and see what they retrieved or received as it is being considered as crash UAS, which has been doing the same thing these drones are doing, going over sensitive areas. So that's one lead that I think definitely somebody should follow up on. During October 15, 2023, USPER BWXT, formerly known as Usper Babcock and Wilson Nuclear Energy Fuel Cycle Facility in Lynchburg, Virginia, observed UAS flyovers for 6 consecutive nights. Only one JS system was spotted in each occurrence, and there is no data on estimated flight duration for each occurrence. This is literally everything they're saying in this report. This part of the report is exactly what's going on right now. So how in the world can they sit up in front of the world and pretend? But this goes back to what they've done historically with UFOs. They've done the exact same thing. The spy balloon. They stood in front of everybody acting like they just discovered these things, but they've known about them the whole time and they had the data. They originally had the crash disk from Roswell in 1947, but they're still today, 90 years later, saying they're trying to figure out what the things are. Doesn't it sound exactly like what they're doing right now? That's my point. My point is it's more of the same. But in this current situation where they're leaving all these residents in a position where they're living in fear every day, they have the data and the ability to go and at least tell the people what these things are or show them what this crash craft is. Okay. But even with that being said, they also stated in this same report, that Science and Technology Division, this is part of I think this was 2020, the latest report. Aero is developing an S&T plan that discusses how Aero is approaching the UAP problem, set in a scientifically and technically rigorous manner. The plan outlines the challenges facing UAP detection and identification, such as a lack of high-quality sensor data and a series of gaps in the scientific knowledge base. Same thing that they used when they said that's why we didn't know the Chinese spy balloons was up there, because we didn't have the sensors and the data, and we needed to recalibrate the radar. So they said the same thing then, even though we proved that they've known about balloon warfare for 90 years. So they're doing the same thing here, where they're saying that they as far as these UASs, that they didn't have the ability to detect these things, which is garbage. But they also say Aero has begun collections using a prototype sensor system, Gremlin, for detecting, tracking, and characterizing UAP. Gremlin demonstrated functionality and successfully collected data during a test in March of 2024. The next step for Gremlin is a 90-day pattern of life collection site of national security. Then they give kind of an outline of what the system is and the tools that make this gremlin system that is supposed to make the UAP detection even better for them and be able to sense these things coming in. Okay, for whatever reason, they're acting like they don't have this set up. So I just wanted to show that because they put it in the report. So now this is where we get into it. Reasons why these craft aren't likely adversarial craft, because at the end of the day, even though I've laid it out for you and I've shown you essentially a pattern that when the government has had when it comes to weird things in the sky, and the pattern of deflecting or saying, hey, we never knew about that, but we're finding out now. But now you find out that they've always known, and they have the ability to tell you more, but they won't tell you for their own reasons. So now we're going to take it into our own hands, and we're going to tell you why we don't think that they're adversarial craft. So we don't believe, well, at least I don't believe, that they're adversarial craft. They aren't likely, and this is why, because they may turn around and surprise the mess out of me and for whatever reason, but these are reasons why they aren't likely not adversarial craft. Geosynchronous satellites. We talked about this on another show. Spy satellites. Resolution on those satellites are so good. And you say, how would you know that? Well, in 2019, President Trump accidentally, unwittingly, I'll say, released a photo of a launch pad over in another country that it had received some damage. And he kind of gave up how good our satellites were at seeing things on the ground, or how clear and close you could get. And so he did that. This is zoomed in. This is from space. A space satellite captured details like this on the ground. So geosynchronous satellite then is going to be able to track whatever drones are flying right now, or if you want to call them drones, or just anomalous vehicles. They're going to be able to track these things back to wherever they're going. They're going to be able to track them coming in as well. They're going to be able to see this. So for sure, this is a tool that they have likely already used to know where where the origins of these things are. So I think we could use that and kind of take the adversarial angle off the table, because guess what? If they're coming in off the water, we have the U.S. coasts are protected by Navy nuclear powered fast attack submarines below the water on every coast. So the Gulf, the East Coast, West Coast, Atlantic, Pacific, and even I'm sure up in the Arctic up top by Alaska, we have fast attack submarines underwater. We have warships above the water. And from what I've been told, they can detect the foreign adversarial submarines easily. They know at all times currently where Chinese and Russian subs are, from what I've been told. So very unlikely there's somebody sitting off the coast surfacing with these drones, sending these drones over, letting the drones come back, going back under. They're not doing that. We already have our territory on lock. There's not a way for this to happen. There's not a way. But wait, the New Jersey congressman we watched earlier did say that a sheriff he saw 50 drones come from the ocean, and that the Coast Guard was followed by around 30. Now, how is that possible? How could they be coming off of the water if they're not being released from a ship or some sort of submarine? How could that be possible? How could that be possible? This is what I think. Well, this is what I know. October 21st, 2021, USS Connecticut, which is a fast attack submarine, had an incident in the South China Sea where it struck an unknown object 11 sailors were injured. So immediately you're going to be like, oh, yeah, he ran into a Chinese submarine down there. Yeah, China has subs. However, the object was unknown. The Navy confirmed that the object they hit was not a landmass, nor was it another submarine. It was just some anomalous object underwater. Okay. We've heard and we've seen recently in George Knapp's Netflix special, the can't remember the name of the show, but they show literally what they call a transmedium object, which is anomalous craft that we've always been reporting and that the government has been taking reports on, that has the ability to fly in both air and then go underwater seamlessly. And we had video of that from that show. So with that being said, we know there's something out there in the ocean that isn't a submarine, that doesn't belong to anyone, and they could be coming from that, and they could be coming from underwater, but it's not adversarial craft at all. Not a hobbyist or a private company, right? Not a hobbyist or a private company, because if you take off the adversaries and the Pentagon spokesperson already said that it's not adversarial or U.S. military, but we're just going down the path, right? So it's not a hobbyist, someone here with just remote control or, a builder of drones or a private company. And the reason why is this: if you've been watching the news, November 30th, a couple weeks ago, a Chinese national flew a 2-pound drone up to 8,000 feet in the air, right here where I'm at, not too far, at the Vandenberg Space Force Center. And guess what? At the base, the drone detection system, which is a thing, there's a system that detects drones, spotted the drone over a mile above the base. Security was dispatched in that moment, and he was approached shortly after the drone landed, was back in his possession. He was approached by security. So if you're telling me that security at Vandenberg, the drone detection system, which I'm sure are implemented in probably most bases around the United States, was able to detect this 2-pound drone, follow it back to where the controller was. Yeah, this is probably possible in this current scenario, which means that the drone detection systems are irrelevant in what we're looking at here. And you would have, just as this story was broken, if it was someone sitting out there doing it, they would have been in the news being arrested or at least talked to for sure. And we wouldn't still be going down this path. So you can rule out hobbyists, you can rule out a private citizen, you can rule out adversarial tech or adversarial tech. You can rule all that out. Because essentially, when it comes to private companies or just person flying a drone, it's impossible for anyone to fly an SUV size drone for a minute, let alone for a month, and not immediately be detected and arrested on the spot, or at least having the FBI knock at your front door at some time in the near future. So this has been going on for a month. So once again, we can wipe that out. That is a done deal. And let's see. Yep, let's knock that one out of there. And this is kind of where we all get to. The reason why officials in the government are acting like they don't know who these belong to and why they won't bring them down. And these are some of the reasons we're looking at here. Option one, there's 3 options here. Option one, the reason why officials in the government are acting like they don't know who these belong to and why they haven't brought them down or won't bring them down. Option one is these belong to the military, and this is an attempt to blur the lines with the public between man-made craft and UFOs, and by directly blaming an adversary to kind of as a scapegoat, that would likely cause that adversary to publicly dispute the claim right in their face. You know, adversaries will say, yeah, that's ours, or they'll say, nope, not ours at all. So, yeah, so that's why they don't have an answer, is because it's like there's a possibility that one of the options is we're seeing their craft in the air, and then maybe some of ours as well, which kind of goes into option number 2, which is we are witnessing the government putting up drones to mitigate non-human craft in the area, meaning we're actually seeing both man-made and non-human craft in the sky, which is very possible. It's very possible because we know with anomalous activity, we know they immediately put up jets, helicopters, things of that nature. Now, if you're over a populated area, maybe you throw up some drones instead, is to not, you know, make a ruckus as far as, you know, having jets rip through the air or the thudding of chopper blades passing right over houses. And, you know, that could be a thing. So these are just options. Option number 3, which is probably the most likely one, is plain and simply these craft are non-human and the government doesn't have any way to bring them down. That's pretty simple. And you know, I'm not going to say that it for surely is one of these 3 things, but I think option 1 kind of still leaves it open to be the military, you know, trying to put their own drones up there and saying, hey, we don't know what they are, just so you can be concerned about them, have fear behind them, and then say, hey, these are the drones that have been incurring on everyone's bases for all these years. Look, you see, this is what they are, just to have one, you know, brought forward and say they're just drones, right? Because this kind of obfuscates the whole anomalous reporting that has been going on for bases all across the country for many, many years. Then you got number 2, once again, which means there were anomalous craft reported first, and then they put their drones up to kind of mitigate the situation. Option 3, plain and simply, all of this is just non-human, and they don't have any authority or power to control that, which we know in more of the anomalous cases that you have F-22s that can't even touch these things. Back in 2004, Fravor said he was flying the best jet available at the time, and this thing just left him in the dust. So if you can't shoot it down, well, then you can't shoot it down. It's going to stay up there, right? And that's just a little bit of what we're doing here. But I think we gave you some homework here. We at least pointed to the fact that the government knows what this is. We know that they've had one of these things crash, and they have access to it. If they want to, they can go get it, and they can at least give the people some information about what these things are. So it isn't just a we don't know situation. So with that being said, and obviously as the days go on, I'm sure more will come out. You know, I'm really hoping that you know, this thing gets solved pretty quickly. At least we know definitively one way or the other which one it is. But I'll tell you, there's a lot of things about this that really feel anomalous. And everything points for man-made, and then even the statements that are being made by officials are pointing away from the man-made options. So it kind of doesn't even really leave us but with anything but something very anomalous. So just keep that in mind. Those who have known UFOs know that this has always been a possibility. Those who are just now, you know, because of fear, being kind of drawn into a situation where you're kind of discovering or figuring this stuff out, I'll let you know that these things are definitely up there. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and talk about what just happened last night. So Minnesota has now been added to the list of places where these things have popped up in the Minnesota skies. So if you're in Minnesota, we're going to go ahead and show you guys something here. This is This is an incursion in Minnesota, just happened last night.
Well, this is an interesting story. People in Northfield keep seeing mysterious lights in the nighttime sky. The sightings come as people on the East Coast report seeing large drones that they can't explain.
And the East Coast sightings now have the FBI's attention, with the White House even chiming in. Fox 9's Mike Manzoni spoke with eyewitnesses in Northfield tonight. And Mike, they're not sure what they're looking at.
Yeah, but they say what they're seeing is similar, maybe not the same, but similar to what people are seeing in New York, in New Jersey. Here's one video here where you can kind of see one or two orbs kind of hovering, floating around. At times they move, eventually disappear. What are they? No one knows.
We started trying to follow them, but they won't be followed. They're kind of like they disappear.
Deborah Wagner doesn't know what she keeps seeing over her Northfield home.
And then these things, whenever anybody would kind of come towards them, they'd back off.
But her daughter, Chrissy Grady, sees them too.
Are these UFOs? Are they a government thing? Like, what are they?
It's really low.
I know it is.
You gotta follow it. There's another one up there.
Oh, crap.
Chrissy and her kids took this video when they saw flashing lights that moved away after they spotted them.
Well, it obviously sees me. I gotta pretend like I'm actually driving. Watched both of them. So now there's 4.
They started seeing the lights over the summer, and now it's a nightly thing.
They would come and kind of like hover, and then we would go outside, and then they would leave.
About 1,000 miles away in New York and New Jersey, this is what people are seeing in the skies. Eyewitnesses say they look like SUV-sized drones, and those sightings now have even the White House's attention.
Obviously, this is something that DHS and FBI are tracking very, very closely.
Well, I don't want it to come closer.
As for what Chrissy and her mother, Deborah, keep seeing here in Minnesota, well, they don't know.
Right now, just the unknown is driving us crazy and making us mad.
But they do know what you're probably thinking.
I was like, oh man, everybody's gonna think, oh, go have another glass of wine, Mom.
And Chrissy says she did reach out to the sheriff's office, but they didn't have any answers for her. In the studio tonight, Mike Manzoni, Fox 9.
All right, so that just happened in Minnesota. So now, well, anomalous things have always happened everywhere. Let's just start there. But it appears that the movement or the motion is now showing everyone that this is either spreading out and you're getting anomalous reports like what you just saw here. So, guys, one other thing that makes it feel like it's not, that it is definitely likely something that has to do with things that might not be from here. One of the reports that also came out yesterday from an incident where a gentleman ended up reporting to the news of an encounter with a bus-sized object. That's just where I'll say, and I'll let him tell the story. Here we go.
How is it possible that everyone from the New Jersey governor to the FBI have no idea what these are? Joining us now is my friend Evan Cutler, who witnessed one of the drones up close in New Jersey. He took some pictures as well. Evan, good to see you. So Evan described to me what he saw, and I said, you got to come on the show to talk about it. Evan, what did you see?
Well, I saw a drone. If it was a drone, who knows what it was, but it was not the drone you see people fly. There's the picture. It was the size of a school bus, literally the size of my 2-car garage. Well, I have a 1-car garage, the size of a 2-car garage.
And what happened when you saw it or you started taking pictures, et cetera?
Well, to back up a little bit, I'm coming home from On Patrol Live. It's 12:30 at night, and I get into Montclair, New Jersey, and I see the full moon. And I'm like, well, it can't be a full moon because the full moon was 2 weeks ago. All of a sudden, it's getting closer and closer. And then first, I think it's a plane, then a helicopter. Then it's hovering right over the woods as you're entering Montclair. And it's a drone literally 40 feet wide by 40 feet wide, hovering right over the woods. I pull over, get out of my car, forget about the phone. I'm just like looking at this thing, wondering what the heck it is. Then I said, oh, I should take a picture. I grab my phone, starts, the second it like notices I'm out there, it just starts heading south. grabbed the picture. The picture looks like a dot. It looks like, at the very most, like a Plan 9 from outer space flying saucer. But when I got a good close look at it, when it was only about 100 feet off the ground, maybe 150 feet off the ground, it looked like a drone on steroids, like literally a drone the size of a garage.
And you reported it to the authorities?
I got home. The first thing I did is I Googled. I went on X. I went on Instagram. I like, is this a thing? And I saw nothing except one little news report from like Morris County Patch about some drones making noise and keeping people up at night. Nothing. Then, so the next morning I called the FAA, I called the FBI, and still to this day, I've not gotten a response from either of them.
Well, it's not surprising considering we just saw them in front of a House committee saying they don't know what's going on. But, it is
the one thing I got to say, though, is if for people like me who do see something that's unidentified, there's very little recourse. I Googled, what do you do when you see a UFO? There's nothing. I think that's why a lot of times these things go unreported. You have nowhere to go. And I'm a seasoned journalist. I know, I did some digging. I found out who to call. And to this day, I've gotten no response.
It's weird that it's just happening in this one area of New Jersey. Maybe they're just monitoring you, Evan,
That was my first thought. And, and I do have my aluminum foil here if I do want to make a hat. That was what some people at All Patrol Live suggested. But, as ridiculous as everything sounds, I do have a teeny bit of credibility. I'm the president of the Montclair Bird Club. I'm used to looking at things in the sky. I've been a bird watcher since 4th grade. I spend my weekends at the Montclair Hawk Watch. I look at things in the sky. I know that's one of the things I'm good at.
Yeah, you're good at many things, Evan. Don't sell yourself short. Evan Cutler, thank you very much for coming on the show. Appreciate it. See you this weekend.
See you, Dan. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.
Exactly. So another anomalous thing that isn't a man-made thing. I think those last two cherries on the top right there kind of bring it home that some of this stuff they're seeing doesn't look like fixed wing anything. They're just blobs of light in some cases. And the other point to take away from that is the fact that they feel like the thing is aware and that, it wants to move away when approached and things of that nature. That's more of UFO behavior. I got to be truthful and be real about this. So, but one thing I can say, and this is really where I want to put this to bed for everybody, that make no mistake, the adversary threat is real for many reasons. We know that. We know we've had attacks on the United States before. So we know that adversary threats are a real thing and something to be concerned about. But what we are currently experiencing very likely has nothing to do with them. Very likely, there's nothing that points at adversarial ill intent or anything along those lines based on what we've looked at. There's nothing that could tie to an adversary as of yet that we see. So as far as that goes, take that concern out of your mind, though we may be dealing with something else. Historically, our adversaries have reported these same type of incursions too. So keep that in mind. There have been on the record accounts where Russia has or China has said they've had UAPs, or they're calling UAPs, flashing lights and things of that nature in their areas as well. So, and you got to keep that in mind. So don't allow the silence of the government to immediately take you to adversarial threat, because I think we made a case enough to show that it's not that. It's something actually a little bit, the thing that is left is actually more exciting for humanity, because if this turns out to be in relation to extraterrestrial, there we said it, there it is. If it leans into being actual extraterrestrial contact, what that could mean for humanity is huge. And the idea of even having an adversarial threat, those days in a moment of contact with extraterrestrials, if that's what we're doing here, the adversarial threats will be long gone in as far as the thought process of a humanity that has experienced a contact with an extraterrestrial presence. So that is a good thing to look forward to, and it feels like likely a good part of what we're dealing with right now is exactly that. We know they're there. We know they've been here. We have too many cases within UFO history that shows that in these weird things in the sky, we have cases where these things have landed on the ground. We have cases where the things that have landed on the ground opened up, and out of these things have walked things that are not from this planet. So take that for what you will, and embrace the moment. It is actually a great time to be alive, and be cautious, but don't be fearful in this moment as we take this path together. And I just wanted to make sure that that was the state of mind you walk away from this with. No more adversarial threat. There just isn't anything there to support the adversaries. There just isn't. So it's likely not the case. You're likely in one of the biggest moments as far as humanity shifting moments that any human being is going to probably experience in the next 1,000-2,000 years. We might be in that moment right now. And if that's the case, embrace it and just be happy that that's where we're at, because it's going to be great if that's what this is. So this is Drone Watch Day. I don't know. For us, it'll be day one. If things keep going with this, just as far as like the little developments, or if the government finally has the cojones to step to the plate and make that statement, and make that all important statement, then we'll definitely be covering that right here on the definitive UFO news show. And this is the first one we got in the bag, so it has been pretty awesome. I want to talk to anybody if you guys have anything that you want to say. So I'm opening up the phone lines. Actually, they're open right now. 856-843-3444, 856 the dig. Let me get the number back up on the screen just in case you want to call in and kind of say how you feel about the situation here. 856-843-3444. That's 856 the dig. Let me make sure that the line is open. And yeah. So do not disturb is turned off. And if you want, you can call in and say something about what's going on, how you're feeling. If you're in that area, if you have anything you want to say from that area, this is definitely the time to do it. And we just make sure. Yeah. So I'll leave that open for you guys. You guys got the number here. I want to go ahead and go over a few things before we wrap it up, because if we don't get any calls, I definitely want to make sure that we show some of the stuff we got going on here at the channel. And we have these other shows. So right now you're at a brand new show. This is episode 1, first episode of the definitive UFO news show with Mr. Rob G. And I kind of wanted to just lay this big thing out for what's going on in the moment. But this will be formulated into a news show, which will cover various news things that happen within UFO world ufology. And depending on the topic, I definitely may have an open phone line open for anyone that wants to call in on any episode. Otherwise, aside from the show, we have the Social Dig, which is the show you see right there on the far left, which would normally be running right now in this spot, which would be Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific. We have My Experience with the Phenomena, which is a show that will be running tomorrow, because our guests for that show, our experiencers, I should say, are Science Bob and Lala Bright. They'll be coming in and talking about their experience with the phenomena. So I anticipate that will be an awesome show. So make sure you're right back here tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific. And then this weekend, we are scheduled for another late night call-in show, which is Saturday at 11:30 p.m. Pacific time, which is right after we wrap up over on Space Star Radio, the After Hours radio show. And it's just a great time. We get into a lot of great conversations, some of them pretty heavy, pretty deep. But, I'm glad we did this deep dive today, because I think what it has done is it just puts everything, all the scattered pieces in one place. So when you're able to sit, like I said before, it's almost like compartmentalization, because, you have all these different things, and it's up to you to go gather all those pieces and put it together. And after you've done that, sit down and look at it all, when that's just the job that we've done for you today. So we wanted to make sure this was a deep dive and extensive, and then lay out the similarities of history, because I'm a person that always says that history is a great indicator of the things that are happening in the present. You could learn from that and look at patterns. And you see over the last 100 years, which is crazy to think about, how many times the government has taken the concerns of human beings lightly when it comes to, are we in a position to relax or be fearful? And you see, we've given the authority to government to lead. And in these moments, what is exactly happening? Not that, right? But like I said, I think this is the moment where we could all get together, embrace what's happening, and take the ride, and be in a position to decide what we do and how we do moving forward. Very exciting times. All right. So with that being said, I don't see anything here. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that we are good to go there. Let's see. Derek Galloway is saying there's an orb from New Jersey over on his channel. Let me go ahead and see if I can see that. Woo Riders DG. Let's take a look here. If it's something we can show here. And we will do so, but let me see. Okay. I see the object. Okay. All right. Let's before I show this, let's confirm though. Do we know that this is from New Jersey? So I don't want, if it's not related, let me see. Yeah, I'm on the fence on that one, man. Not enough data, not enough information there in the video for me to put a stamp on it. But okay, so with that being said, you can become a social soldier today. We have wonderful members here on the channel. You saw the programming. We work hard on this channel to bring something great to the table, and we'll continue doing that. Same way we created this show and added it to the other great shows we have. There'll be other content that we also add here at the Social Dig. Also, we'll have Social Bits, which I just had up here, Social Bits, which is short form, pre-recorded short form content. So you'll be getting some of that here as well. Definitely consider becoming a member. I know we had a member add themselves today, and I want to make sure that we bring that up. Also, Cash App. Cash App is a quick way to go ahead and support this channel as far as production costs, getting the things that we need to make this the best channel out there. And anything you can do to help there will go a long way to making this one of the best shows on YouTube or online, period, right? So with that being said, let me see. Our members so far, we have Ann Joanne, the Beekeeper, D. Nunley, Maggie M10, Deb from Flat 6, Miss Catherine Jones, Cosmic Joe Chronicles, W. Decker, and then I think I saw someone here who is still Pooh 96, who came through with the new membership. I do appreciate you there. Then also Maggie M10 for the super sticker, because you know what? We put a lot of work into what we do here on the Social Dig, and glad we can go ahead and do that for you. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get ready to shut this thing down as we just hit over the 2-hour mark. Okay, nope, Latchkey Hustle said he called, but he got voice. Oh, you know why? You know why. Here we go. I know exactly why, Latchkey. Let me. Oh. I think I got you in here anyway, Latchkey. I would love to hear from you real quick. Oh, here we go. All right, calling you. Let me see if it comes through here.
Hey there.
Hey, Latchkey, how you doing?
Good, doing well. And yourself?
Doing good, doing good. So, man, drone swarms across New Jersey, now spreading across the United States. How are you feeling about this? I know you on your channel, you record technically the Dragon UFOs, UAP, which, you know, are in the same category for me. So how are you feeling about this, and anything you want to say about this?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that it's not new. It's just that more people are looking up and it's making news, which I think is great. But for people that are, you know, have been existing in this space, it's not, I mean, it definitely feels like a flap. I'll tell you that. But, you know, I don't think that it's necessarily as new as people think it is. You know, that's my first thought. And, you know, the other thing too is that I do record a number of the Dragons a la Dr. Shipe and Custodian File, but I also record quite a bit more. It started out with the Dragons, and then the more I kind of opened up to it, the more I started to see and the more I record. And so T-Bone was suggesting I call in because at the end of November, on the 30th, I went outside my house in the evening and saw this gigantic pyramid-shaped structure in the sky. And so, you know, I recorded it as best I could, but it wasn't particularly close. It was, I kind of mapped it out a bit, and the best I could kind of gather is about 4 or 5 miles away, but it was just so enormous. And it was just running through the color spectrum so fast. And if you pull up my channel, there's you know, there's the last two uploads are basically about that. So there's, you can, if you pull it up, you can see the footage for yourself. It's just, but unfortunately, it's one of those things where the footage doesn't do the experience justice.
Yeah, like always.
You know?
And that was it. I'm glad you said that, because that was another point that I wanted to make, that I did make as well, is that it's not just UFOs that come out blurry. It's everything you take a picture of with these phones and these phone cameras. You get the same results. So I imagine if we were to get a great camera in place, which is something I hope they do within this thing we're going through, so we can get something crystal clear. But I do see what you're talking about, and it does look pretty amazing. So let me see if I can bring this up here. This is actually really great, actually.
Yeah, I kind of, I guess I got lucky. I don't know. But I mean, it's tough to put into words. I mean, it was so big, Rob. It was so big, and it was emitting so much energy. It was, you know, but I posted it as quickly as I could, basically, like the following morning. And then a couple of days later, I thought to check my own security cameras here on the property, and I saw it kind of come in, not kind of, I saw it come into existence on camera. And, you know, with the security footage, you're able to match it up with the timing. And so it popped on, and then a minute later I walked out, saw it, pulled out my camera, and then within 10 or 15 seconds of me recording it, it was almost like it knew I was looking at it, because it dimmed out and then just faded off.
You know, Tamont Man is in the chat, and I know he sent me something about one of these things showing up in Temecula last night. Had you seen that or heard anything about that?
I haven't, but in fairness, you know, this is a hobby for me. I'm not retired, and this isn't for making money. And so the year end comes, and this is a busy time for me business wise. So I have sort of been hitting the brakes on things because I've been putting in a lot of hours and working late. This situation last Saturday on November 30th was literally, it was so, I don't want to say happenstance, because, you know, for the people that watch enough of my presentations and my uploads to my channel, they hear me talking about raising my vibration. And I think that a lot of people are seeing these things, but for other people that, you know, this has been a journey. I've been an experiencer for a long time, but over the last couple years, I've taken affirmative steps to raise my vibration, to change my frequency. And I mean, physical stuff with exercise, fasting, ice baths, meditation, visualization, TK work. I've done a lot, and I still do it. It's just a part of how I live my life. Yeah. And so I don't think it's an accident that I happen to catch things on camera and have these experiences, you know. It's hard for me to chalk it up to happenstance when I'm very much connected to this world we live in.
Yeah, I can agree with you there. I mean, you just like you stated, that frequency and being on that frequency is kind of what has you able to do it like that. Because I know my different times that I've connected with phenomena, it's more than just chance. It has to be. So we're looking at the video. Can you see it as well as it's playing?
No, I can't.
It's like flying over the roof line right now, kind of off in the distance.
And it just, I think if you're probably watching the first video, because the one after it kind of gives you a little more perspective of where that is, but it shows it coming into view. And the reason I'm saying this now, why it's important, is because, you know, I'm basically looking south. I'm in the foothills in the Pasadena area, and I face basically south. And so all of the plane traffic goes left to right towards Marina and Robert Scheib at Custodian File, and it all goes right over Ground Dwarf in his shop. So everything on this everything on that camera goes left to right. This thing came like from away and came up, and then basically didn't move and hung out over that roof and just chilled there until I come out and start recording it, and then it kind of just fades off. And I understand, you know, people might look at that and be like, oh, well, it's camera this or it's whatever. Listen, I've lived here for a long time. This is my house, you know, I'm raising my family here. I know what the sky looks like around here. I know when stuff doesn't belong. I know when stuff's out of place. And that's why it caught my eye. And, you know, it doesn't present like any helicopter presents. But you post something, you know, and then you get people on Reddit going, oh, you're an idiot. That was the helicopter. And you're like, no, you don't live here. I live here. I look at the sky every night. I know what the stuff looks like that's prosaic. And this was not that.
Yeah. And, you know, I think some of these, like the last two videos we watched here earlier, I think, you know, there's definitely a mix of anomalous things in what's going on currently. And I think, you know, I think most of it is anomalous. I think it's kind of, I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird place to be in, because whoever thought that if this is exactly what we're feeling or thinking, that it would be in the moment now. Like, we know what we've experienced and we know we see these things, but for so many people at once who were not maybe focused on this, to all of a sudden have that moment, like you were stating, where they're focusing and paying attention. And then on top of that, maybe it's tied to the real deal. You know what I mean? That's the part that's just so mind blowing. It's just like,
I agree. But you know, and you've made a good point too. I agree with what you were saying earlier about, you know, people seeing lights, and even people in this space, in our community, who are otherwise very open-minded. I've heard them fall victim to this, where they're even saying, well, there's a green light and a red light, therefore it's this.
Oh my God.
And it's like, well, you're like, come on, you know, like, we have to, now isn't the time to put the blinders on. Now is the time to expand your thinking even more, in my view of it, you know. And I mean, I see things quite often that seem to mimic prosaic craft and birds. I mean, they're just not quite right. I've seen things I call knot clouds on my channel, because if you looked at it in the still frame, you just think it's a cloud, but you see it going like Mach 8 across the sky, and you catch it on video, and you're like, wait a minute, what was that? You know, and you start to realize, like, oh, we just don't know nearly as much as we think we do.
Yes.
you know what I mean?
Yes.
So, yeah, and so I think, you know, I don't think that, I mean, I understand that there are black projects, and I think there's a lot of semantics that go on, like that Pentagon presser, you know, and she said they're not foreign entities and they're not military, but she didn't say they weren't American. She said they were not military. So, you know, Raytheon, Lockheed, a bunch of other companies have technology that is out and about, and her answer did not account for that group. That said, I think that's a quick way to lose a no-bid contract, to start deploying exotic technology over the masses is a quick way to get your funding yanked. So I don't personally believe we're testing out, or, you know, I don't think it's people, what they're saying is like, it's just our own advanced tech. Like I have trouble, especially in this climate, with the tension, the worldwide tension going on, and, you know, Russia coming out with a new weapon that, you know, goes Mach 11. Like, now isn't the time to start putting janky little nonsense in the sky and not giving people answers.
Yeah,
This isn't the time for that.
And we're not talking about we're not, and that's the whole thing that makes it just ridiculous is we're talking about a month almost every day for a month, not a few days. You were trying something out for a few days, because I can see maybe you want to play with your toy and you just bring it out for a few days, and you don't want anybody to know. So, but just as quick as people are noticing it, now you brought it back in house. So, and the mystery continues. But no, this is every day like clockwork. Set your time by it, and for anyone who has access to a satellite, they can look down, they can buy their clock, focus in on the area that you keep coming back to see exactly what you're doing and who you are and what you got going on. So, that's where the money they put into those things, to those projects, to just spill it out on the world stage and not have a buyer or a, you know what I mean? It's just going down that path of logic. It just doesn't make sense. And then just the human part of it, where any part where a human would have hands on what's going on, it just doesn't make sense. Like a hobbyist,
right?
The guy in the Chinese national, who's an American, I guess he's a permanent resident here in America, but he got found out immediately. Drone detection systems at the bases detected the drone, which was it was 8,000 feet in the air for one, and by the time he brought it down and kind of got it tucked away, they were already there. And we know many accounts where people have done that. Go fly a drone right now near Area 51 or any installation and see if they are not right there, Johnny, on the spot, right in your face immediately. So,
not only in your face and on the spot immediately, but they've also deployed their tech to take your drone over.
Exactly, to ground your drone. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a big part of it, because in terms of threat detection and defense, in addition to getting the culprit and the perpetrator, you also need to seize the weapon, right? So, like, if you're in a street fight with a dude with a gun, it's not good enough to put him in an armbar. You've also got to seize that weapon. And to the point you're making, I mean, we clearly have the technology to do these things. But I want to mention something too that you made me think of you mentioned the satellite. I don't know. I'm 51, and so I remember watching the original War Games with Matthew Broderick.
Oh yeah.
And I remember thinking that NORAD had a building inside of a mountain. Like, Jesus. Like, just right off the bat, I'm like, okay, that's just next level. That's crazy. But recently, I've had these two thoughts. Number one is I've always been told, at least in the last 20 years, it's been my understanding that we have such advanced technology, camera systems on satellites, that they can read a license plate from outer space. Right. So my thought is, if that's true, why is it that NASA or the Department of Defense, nobody has trained a camera from a satellite on these things just to follow them, just to see where they're going?
No, they have.
Like, I don't understand that.
No, they have. They have. That's one part of the disingenuous, perspective from the FBI and those guys, because they're sitting up here saying they have no clue or no idea, but they're watching them. They are.
I mean, they have to be. But then, and the other question I had is, where's NORAD in all of this? I mean, they're supposed to be in charge of North American air defense, and I don't hear anybody asking NORAD for their input or taking them to task or calling them to the carpet. And like, what's your role in all of this? We're leaving it to local officials. I mean, and a hapless FBI. It's just nothing feels correct about this.
Right. And that's what I mean, because I think they would hold him to task if it came out that this was, had some ties to adversaries. But, I think, what do you do if it's non-human tech and, you can't do anything to these things? It's like NORAD or anybody is just like, no one has the answer. And it kind of feels like that's what this is. It kind of feels like it kind of feels like they're like, oh shit, this is UFOs, but we don't want to admit that because then we've disclosed. So we're just going to say we don't know, and we'll just keep saying that, and hopefully these things stop coming around so we can just let it pass. But because it's happening every night, then they're being put like in a real pickle as far as what it is that they're going to do aside from saying no, because you would think they'd have some more sophisticated strategy or plan. If this was something that they were controlling, that they would have a map or a roadmap or a game plan as far as what they were going to say next. But it literally feels like they just are at a loss for words because it is out of their control. And if it is out of their control and we can rule out other human options, then we know that these UFOs are here in other aspects. So it almost just feels like this would be the disclosure moment, and they just don't want to do it. They're just like, nah, we can't say it. By any means, we can't say it. So if you have to go out there every day and say you don't know, that's what you're going to do.
Right. I agree. And also, if you remember the Langley situation for 2 weeks last December, right? It's almost a year ago to the day, actually, right? It was mid-December of 2023, and it's almost like what's going on now is a macrocosm of what was going on then. Almost as if it was like, okay, look, we're gonna mess around, give you a chance to let your people know we're here. And they just locked up for 2 weeks and couldn't do anything. And now it's like, okay, well, we're doing it again, but we're just expanding beyond Langley. We're gonna show your people. If you don't want to tell them, we're gonna tell them. That's almost what it feels like.
And then because I was like, it kind of feels weird. Like, why they're just in one spot? And just I would think that they would show up in more areas if they were making a move, and day by day. And I also thought because it just rained in New Jersey yesterday, I believe. I was watching their weather. Supposedly it's supposed to be pretty windy and rainy yesterday, and these things are still persisting. So you tell me what type of thing can fly. We know UFOs have been seen going against the wind. Look, they're going against the wind at high velocities and are unrocked, and some that have hovered in high winds and just stay steady. We know we've seen that. So it's like I was saying, it's a lot of characteristics about what's happening now that tie into what we already know from dealing with UFOs and looking into that. So it's just like there's, and for those residents though in New Jersey, it's because they don't know. Some of them do. Some of them, I'm sure, are into UFOs and kind of know the backstory. But there's got to be a handful of those people that just don't, and they're figuring this out right now. And I think
I think it's the majority, probably. I mean, I think the people that are in the know are a tiny little subset. Most people are the ones that are out of the know and getting a hard crash course right now.
And I saw what I did see. It said, T-Bone said Dr. Shipe is in the chat tonight. Dr. Shipe, thanks so much for coming in. And I did see you message me, and I definitely need to speak to you. So I will be messaging you soon, sir. And yeah, it's just, it's one of those moments where, and then we're in a moment where the presidential thing is happening, where you're switching spots. So it's like, if you're Biden, if I'm Biden, and if this is UFOs, and I know I'm out the office anyway, I'm going to say it. I'm going on TV tomorrow, and we're going to make this thing official, because I just feel like, I don't know, I feel like Trump might do it. I feel like if this is still going on when Trump goes into office, he's going to be asked to address it for sure by the press, and he just might address it. So somebody needs to say something. Somebody needs, like, what is the downside? I mean, obviously, if you show goodwill as a government and you step into this and say, hey, we care about humans and humanity. We want to go ahead and, be the ones to disclose this to you and let you know that we're going to be here for you. And we're going to figure this out. We're going to work through this and take those steps. Like, then you kind of gain a lot of trust back from the people. So it's like something, a move you should want to do, because the way it seems, if this is UFOs, if this is extraterrestrial, and you're just sitting up there every day saying you don't know, well, that there's not going to be any hope for reconciliation on the other side of disclosure, man. And that's just, that's why it's weird,
Yeah.
man, to watch it all play out.
Excuse me. One other thing too, I wanted to mention something that made me think of it. My little Last She Hustle YouTube channel is a tiny little channel, and I actually don't even ask people to subscribe or hit like. I grew up in a merit-based household where the concept was if whatever you're doing is worthy, it will find the right people. And I'm not judging anyone. And it's kind of an outmoded way of life, I guess. And I shoot myself in the foot by not kind of promoting. But the point I'm trying to make is that, so there's a handful of people I connect with, and I respond to all the comments myself, and I've developed relationships with people.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them are overseas. This is not an American event that's going on right now.
Right.
We look at ourselves as the power in the world, and the global policeman and all this Western culture, this and that. But this is it seems like it's an American thing because we're Americans and we live in America. But I have people that email me videos and send me messages from South America, from Germany, from North Africa. I've gotten videos from Italy. There's a friend of mine in Asia. There in India. There are people all over the world seeing what we're seeing and experiencing what we're experiencing. But I think the truth embargo here has caused the major media outlets to, number one, mock it generally and barely report on it, period. But they're definitely not going to report on stuff that isn't stateside. But this is happening everywhere.
Exactly. And it's exciting, but it's scary too at the same time, because we talked many a times about, but this is what I don't want, because obviously there's so many people that are just in fear behind the notion that this is adversarial and this potentially could be related to a potential trigger for war. And I just want that out of people's mind, because, I don't think the government is they're saying, you got one part of the government saying it's not adversarial. So, you would think that's enough. But when you ask the other person in the government, they're just like, we don't know what it is. So then just the same is true, that how could you say it's not adversarial if you don't know what it is, right? So it doesn't clear anything up for the average person who's just really trying to work their way through this and figure this thing out. And, and there needs to be some clarity there, because I looked around and people are just talking to be talking. Nobody's really trying to figure it out. But
Right.
I think one thing that was pretty interesting was the fact that in thank God for Arrow in this moment, which I never thought I would say that, but they put in the report that they had a UAS that exhibited the same features and that's another thing that leans it into that non-human aspect, is that the behaviors and things outlined are the same things they're seeing over at Arrow, which that's the things they're focusing on, are things that are not man-made. So it makes more sense to lean into that. But they have a crashed one.
Yeah.
They have one that crashed. So if you have that in the county, they list the county's name, the law enforcement agency. So shouldn't it be as easy as going right on over there saying, hey, could we see that? Examining it themselves, which I'm sure they have already, and then saying, hey, America, this is our world. Hey, this is what it is. it's one of these things, and it's not, you know what I mean, just to ease people's minds, but it's likely just like
Right.
with those Yukon things they shot down, that it's the things they shot down aren't they don't want us to see them for whatever reason, and that even leans further into the fact that these are probably not human or not made
Yeah,
by
you're
humans.
right. And with that Yukon situation, the first thing they announced after the shoot downer was that there was no debris recovered. Now, really, it's not over an ocean.
Right.
I mean, and you know that they had military and private sector teams out there recovering every last little bit of everything.
Exactly.
But the first thing they said is, we shot it down, and we couldn't. There's nothing we could find. It just doesn't make sense.
Not only did they have
But-
somebody get it, but they dispatched them immediately. I'm sure the moment that they were shooting it down, the team was dispatched to go retrieve it immediately, and we know they have it.
Yeah, I agree. And one other thing too is, and this is something to your point about people that are sort of outside of this space versus those who are lifetime experiencers or researchers or students of the topic. People like us know that the descriptions aren't even new. These flashing light descriptions go back to the 50s and 60s. That's not even new. And John Keel was talking about the phenomena's ability to mimic. I mean, these concepts are not new concepts, but it's such a small handful of people who are aware of those things that it's almost like, it's lost knowledge because there's so few people that even realize it. And then you say something like mimicry or, flashing lights, maybe it's a form of communication or whatever. And, it's like you're speaking some unidentified language to people, but these are not new events. They've been documented over decades in this country.
And the fact that these things are reacting to things that people on the ground are doing, no drone operator is going to be able to key in on a person and react to a person's movement. That's not going to be able to happen. They won't be aware enough of one particular person on the ground to be able to react immediately to something that a person does. So that's also something that leans into that anomalous category. Now they'll point to things like you said with the lights, but they don't know anything. So they're like, hey, it's light, so it should be. No, that doesn't mean that. But then also sound, you know what I mean? And I've said this before, because you get into when your standard is UFOs make no sound, period. Well, then you limit it in yourself, because I think UFOs probably do make noise. You know what I mean? And UFOs don't have blinking lights. Well, I think you're limiting yourself. And then UFOs observe the five or use the five observables. Well, once again, you're putting it in a box that it shouldn't be in, because if they're super advanced, they could do whatever the F they want. We can't sit here and say they only do this, they only do that. What are we talking about here? Of course they make noise if they want to.
It's like limiting things to, what's possible based on Newtonian physics. It's like your human rules don't necessarily apply. I'm sorry to tell you.
Like, dude, light is is a common thing across the universe. Of course they have lights. Of course they know what lights are. And I was making this point as well on a different day, but we were talking about that's one of the, one case that they have out there that kind of I'm conflicted with, or I think differently than other people, is the Cash Landrum. They're like, Cash Landrum, yeah, that was definitely man reverse engineering ET craft, and you can tell because they were using fire. Like, fire is universal across the universe. Like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah.
Just because fire was coming out the craft, that is not from the, oh my God. And it's just change your way of thinking. You know what I mean? When I'm thinking about that, I'm like, how could you be so stuck on a thought process like this when you have to remember anything is possible, because we're sitting on a rock floating in space, spinning around a ball of fire as we figure this whole thing out. And everything we're doing in life, we're doing on this little rock that is literally floating through the vastness, nothingness of space. Now, people lose that perspective, because I think if people just, when you sit down, you can think about it, but it's not always on your mind. But somebody like me or you or people within this field are going to think that, like, it's amazing who we are and what we are. But the average person is just walking around like, hey, where's the next thing to do? And not really thinking about, really the full, they're having tunnel vision. They're not seeing the bigger picture of, okay, we are doing something really weird right now. So a lot of things actually are possible when we think about it. And I think once you can get people to kind of focus on that, and I think that's what's happening in this moment, is people are getting that moment where they get to sit back and kind of let their minds expand and open up to other possibilities, except just the normal little life that they live. And I'm just glad for it, because I think the last time there was an opportunity for humanity in one moment at one time to all have a moment to open their minds up was back when we had COVID, because you had to stay indoors. You couldn't go do the normal little menial things that clogged up your day. So you had a time to sit back and reflect. And it was really one of those moments. And I was like, man, we missed that moment to kind of affect change within this field. But then now, I didn't think we'd ever see another moment, or I was asking, like, what else could come across that could give a bunch of people at one moment to have that enlightening moment. And here we are right now in this moment right now.
Yeah, no, that's well said. It's very well said. And if you need to go or whatever, just tell me. I'm not trying to like talk your ear off here, but I mean, I can talk for days about this stuff. There's one other thing I wanted to mention is, and I have nothing against science. Okay, just let me preface that what I'm about to say with this. I'm all for science. I'm all for data collection and analysis. I think it's important and it has its place, but I also don't think that science is the end all be all. Yeah. And I feel like I feel like there's been this push towards science where it's almost like, well, if you cannot prove it scientifically, and if you can't scientifically repeat it, then it's invalid. And the problem I have with that is, the truth, facts, reality, all of those things predated science.
Exactly.
Science is new. Science is a very, very new evolution in the big picture. And so before there was science, before there was the ability to triangulate with multiple cameras, before there were all of these tools that we have now, there was still reality and the truth. And so for people then, that existed then, they still had to find truth. They still had a belief system. They still, but it's like, if you look at it now, it's like, well, if you can't prove it under a microscope or in a petri dish, or you can't replicate the experiment, then therefore, it's witchery. And it's like, you're kind of discounting the vast majority of the human experience on this planet. Because most of the time on this planet, we have not had science.
That's why, and I agree with you 100%. And I've said that as well. And I like you where you said tool, because that's exactly how I feel. Science is a good tool, but it is also a field that moves the goalpost every 20 and 30 years, because back when we were growing up, there was a such thing as a planet called Pluto. We had 9 planets in the solar system. Now we don't. And there is always things where they say this is how it is, and then 20 years later, oh, but we made a mistake. I'm sorry. We're going to go ahead and rewrite that. And that's kind of what they, I made a point of James Webb Telescope. That's exactly what's happening now. James Webb Telescope comes out and it shows them now deeper into the solar. And now they're like, oh my gosh, we're seeing things we didn't even think that solar cells they'd be so developed out there, but they are. We have to rethink the whole Big Bang Theory. The Big Bang Theory, you put that in a book that I read in school. You know what I mean? So, and now you're
Yep.
taking that out and you're changing your whole script. So I appreciate science just as you do. And I think it is a good tool to kind of help and explain certain things, because there's certain things they definitely get right. But it is, common sense existed a lot longer than that. And that's why I lean on that, because I think that is the primal tool that we really were given to figure things out. Starting from cavemen was common sense and logic. Before we could even speak words, that's what we use to evolve and get ourselves till today. So why would that not be the thing we would use now, even though we have those other tools out there? I think it's the most important one to use, is our common sense and logic, period. And it's like,
And you certainly don't want to discard them, for sure. You can add to the toolbox, but it doesn't mean, just because you got a good level, it doesn't mean you throw out your tape measure.
exactly. And that's why I say, even dealing with this situation, like, once again, as far as people trying, especially when things are chaotic and you're getting bits and pieces of information here and there, you may not have the wherewithal to kind of gather all those things together, the pieces of the puzzle, to look at that bigger picture. And so it's kind of cool when you can do that, you know what I mean? And say, hey, here's the pieces we have all concisely in one place. So now, hey, take a look and figure it out. Take it from here, add the last pieces so we can figure out what this is. And that's exactly
Right.
what we do at this channel. This is the main reason why we do this here. And I just like doing it because it's the thing that helps us move the needle. And you realize you once you get to see that and you see things, you're like, wow. That's when you had that moment where you're like, wow, okay, I get that. Or you know what, let me add this to that, because and then it's an even better product. And that's where we get the calls like we're doing right now, where you get to kind of just add your thing, and it's like, yeah, okay, I didn't think about that, boom. And then now it's an even more tightly packaged thing, you know what I mean? And we just got to keep doing it, because I don't see people doing this out there, man.
No, I agree. I agree with that. And that one last little point about the science piece is that I think too that people seem to have a tough time admitting that they don't know stuff. And I think it's one of the most important things to be able to do is to admit your lack of knowledge, because then everything opens up. There's so much potential. But like you were saying, when you start putting rules on things, then you limit your own growth. And so, like, if science can't explain the placebo effect or deja vu or twins and the way that they can communicate without speaking in different ends of the country, there's so many different aspects of us as humans that science hasn't figured out yet. So I feel like that's good. That's a good indicator. It's like, it's okay to say you don't know everything, because we clearly don't,
Right.
But to the last point you just made, I just want to say that these conversations and the platform that you're developing and providing for people is so important, because, like I mentioned, I've been a lifelong experiencer, and I'm an LA kid. So I grew up going to Catalina Island every summer for camp. And the first thing I ever saw that would be considered anomalous was orbs, but they were underwater. And I saw them coming in and out of caves, because there are cave systems underwater in Catalina. And I was always a snorkeler and a spearfisher, and I was underwater all the time. And so as a young kid, I was seeing stuff. But I was young, so I didn't know it was so, quote unquote, off the wall. And then because there's no light pollution out there, at night we'd have campfires, and you could see everything. And you know what LA proper is like. LA proper is the opposite. You can't see anything because the amount of light pollution in Southern California.
Exactly.
But you go out to Catalina in the 70s, it was amazing. And I would see stuff darting around in the sky. And so my kind of baseline was automatically like, yeah, there's stuff out here in the world like that, so I've just kind of grown up with that sort of understanding. But to the point I'm making about the platform you're developing and providing for people, it's like I've always been that way, but it isn't until this year, really, last year and this year, where I've felt comfortable enough to talk to people about it, because I would share videos and experiences and a picture here and there periodically, all through college. Even as an attorney, I share stuff with people and be like, hey man, look at this, with friends in court. And they, I would get mocked.
Yeah.
I would get like, just, and you mentioned COVID. When there was the shutdown happened, I started working from home, and my wife came in and overheard a speakerphone conversation. And I was talking to a guy I hadn't spoken to in a while. And he goes, oh, I remember you. You're that UFO guy. And my wife kind of looked at me like, oh my gosh, like you got a crazy little reputation, dude, but it's like, I finally feel comfortable 25 years into my career, secure in who I am, a closer connection with the universe, all of those things I was talking about. I was primed to kind of spread my wings in this way, but I wouldn't be able to if it weren't for people like you and shows like this.
Man, well, I appreciate that, man. And it's the innate nature to want to connect with people, you know what I mean, on a human level, right? Because the jobs and the things that we go to are all manufactured, dude. It's not even us. It's not even, it's not the natural thing to do. It's so being able to be connected and spiritually connected and stuff like that, that is what is supposed to be. That's the way we're supposed to be. And you look around, and even in a field like this, and this is one of the things that really got me when I got into this field. I was I was a co-host on a show, and I've talked to this host about this before, so he knows. But I one day went to him and I was like, what is the outlook on humanity? Like, what do you, nobody had an answer for that. I would ask multiple hosts in this field, like, what do you do once disclosure comes? Like, what do you have any plan for where you go after the words, like with your viewers? Like, what's the conversation like after that? Nobody had an answer to it. And so it made me understand that nobody really even is thinking on that level. Nobody is, they're just worried about, is a UFO real, or is there an alien in the UFO? But no further than that. You know what I mean? And it's like the whole UFO confirmation and the alien confirmation, that's just confirmation. There still is things that, like, we still have to live after that. You know what I mean? And it's like that's kind of what we're doing here. And I'm just glad to be able to have a place like that. It's a place for me too, because I'm in the same boat. Like, I'm hosting the show, but I'm also a viewer of the show too, if that makes any sense. Like, because we're all human beings, and we all are connected in that way. And when I hear you talk, I admire, what you bring to the table. People that are just in the chat typing words, like, wow, that's a great perspective. And that kind of just adds to the overall thing. But that's why I'm glad that we have this little thing that we have, because when you look around, there's a lot of egos, and a lot of people don't really care truthfully about the next person. You know what I mean? And I like what we have here, because that's what we have, and it's rare. And it shouldn't be in this field, because it's supposed to be all about what affects humanity and what happens next in ufology. But it really isn't like that. It's just smoke and mirrors and a lot of ego. But that's why I'm glad we have this lane, man, because this is the true lane to have, and the one that really matters at the end of the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's food for the soul. I'm telling you. It really is.
We're gonna do this. We're gonna do this, Latchkey. And so Dr. Robert Scheit was in the chat, which is awesome. And I looked at my phone momentarily when I was trying to get you connected, and I saw that he sent a message. So that's awesome. So now I can set up the show, you know, where we could all get together, and we're gonna figure things out and talk here in the near future. But we'll be right back here tomorrow, doing the same thing. Well, not this show, but we'll be doing my experience with the phenomena. We got Science Bob and Lala Bright coming in talking about their experience, and then we'll be here for the late night calling show, and then I'll be over at Space Out Radio. So busy for the next few days, but let's make sure that we're getting back together soon, man. I really enjoy, you know, sharpening my steel with you, man.
Hey, I feel the same way. I appreciate it. Like I said, I appreciate what you do, the platform that you provide for all of us. You know, the fellowship in the chat is amazing. It's good all around. And you know, I hear a lot of people say that, you know, this community and even the Bigfoot community, that they cannibalize their own. And that might be, but my experience with you and your platform, that is not that. And I welcome it and I appreciate it, you know, very, very much, especially as somebody who's experienced things my entire life and basically held on to them and kept them to myself because of the ridicule and all of those things. It's like, you know, what you're providing for the rest of us is very, very important, and it's healthy.
And I'll tell you what, I really appreciate that statement. And it's really just like, you know, when I look around, I see people who feel the way that I do. So it really is a like-mindedness, and we all just found each other technically. Our energies kind of just brought us together, and it's the right thing because now as a unit, we can really make some things happen.
Agreed. Very well said. Well, thank you for taking my call. Thanks for allowing me to come on and chat with you for a bit. I appreciate it. I hope everybody enjoyed it. And I'm going to get going. I'm going to go pick up my daughter.
All right, Latchkey, man. Great times. We'll be talking again soon.
Sounds good. Take care, my friend.
You too. Later.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, awesome conversation with Latchkey Hustle. That's my guy, man. It's and you know, like I said, when I look around this chat and I look around, you know, and that's why when we talk about growth on a channel, I like organic growth because it means that people who hit that subscribe button are hitting the button because they're like-minded individuals, not because they're, you know, some gimmick has gimmicked them into hitting a button, or some trend has come through and now you're so I like the slow growth because, you know, when you look at the end of the day, the engagement that we have here is awesome. You know, for the number of subscribers, viewers that we have here, the engagement from those is awesome and on par with a lot of people that have double, triple, quadruple the number of viewers that we have here. So we're going to keep doing awesome stuff, guys, and just keep it organic, keep it real. And that's going to be the unique thing about this news show, this UFO news show, is that it's going to be organically done. And it's going to be from the heart, the way that we talk about this, the way that we cover stuff, the way that we interact with each other. It's all going to be on a human level, and we're going to continue to do that. So once again, I appreciate everybody coming on in for the first little show. You know, I'm going to format it and tighten some things up for this, but glad that you guys were here to be a part of this in an important moment in from what I feel. And we'll see where this goes. More news to come. I'll see you guys soon. You guys have a great rest of your night. Be right back here tomorrow for my experience with the phenomena with Science Bob and Lala Bright. Outside of that, you guys enjoy the rest of your night. Take care.